Okay, this is our new room for the balance of our trip. You can see, pretty nice, pretty nice, pretty nice. Ooh, look at her, really nice. Okay, here we are, looking at the glacier. What a view, isn't it? What a view. Well, hello everyone, Professor Binge here with my lovely wife, Sue, and we're here to talk about our best 5 vacations, the best of the best. This is kind of like part 2 of our earlier video on vacation travel. Now, before I get going, let me highlight a couple things. First of all, self-grading. People tell me hold this up correctly. If you agree with us, you get 20 points. Kind of agree, 10 points. If you disagree, you get 0 points. My wife doesn't know what I put down as our 5 best. She may not agree with me. She may fail this lecture, but we'll see. A couple other things. A lot of our trips are kind of like hybrid trips. Part tour or cruise and part we did on our own. And I'll try and highlight those as we go along of the best of the best. Also want to mention that I traveled a lot before without my wife, and a lot of those trips probably would have made the best of the best, but you know what? If you don't have someone to share them with, they're really not that great. Another point I want to make is we used to have, or at least I had, a very elaborate system for grading every trip we took, every vacation we took. And a trip like, I remember Myrtle Beach, first time 10, Kentucky Lake, 10 out of 10. And then second time we took it, never got better than an 8. And I think Myrtle Beach, we took the third time, we didn't like it at all. In fact, we left early. So what we consider the best of the best, if we ever went back and did it again, who knows? We probably wouldn't grade it as well. I'm going to start off by saying I'm giving honorable mention to Europe. Sue and I have been to Europe a lot. They kind of all blend together. In fact, we were talking about this last night, and it's hard to tell. Go ahead, you talk about it.
Well, I have to agree. One of my top 5 would be the trip to Africa, South Africa, especially Victoria Island and the safari that we took.
Would you consider that the best of the best?
I would say it's probably my top favorite trip is Africa.
Yeah.
Again, the animals, being an animal lover that I am, and we are, I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the people in South Africa. They were so friendly and gracious, and I felt totally safe, and it just was an enjoyable trip all around.
What was your second best?
I think I would have to say Asia. I enjoyed Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, And part of that same trip is what you had said. We were going around the world in one direction, so we did hit Australia the same trip. And that was also very, very nice.
Tell them about your orange pants.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we left the heat in Singapore. It was very hot and humid. And we flew to Australia. Again, going one way around the world on Singapore Airlines. And I got off the plane and a pair of coral capris. And I looked totally out of place because we were there in July and it's the opposite season in Australia as it is here. So I expected to be warm like the US. Little did I know many years ago I was less experienced of a traveler. So I wasn't prepared for the cold weather. So we checked into our hotel and I was in the hotel while you went out and bought me a jacket, a winter jacket. And what made me really look foolish is that we went out to lunch and I remember I opened a container of salad dressing and the whole dressing squirted all over my white shirt. So I was in these coral capris with white sneakers. I couldn't look more of a novice.
We could not for the life of us figure out how to open up this
salad dressing.
It
had an unusual opening to it.
It certainly wasn't something Americans were
yeah,
used to.
For sure.
It was something.
So anyway, it made a trip memorable. Again, memories, and I ended up borrowing a winter jacket from some friends of ours who took us to the Blue Mountains in Barrel, the town of Barrel, and it was just again seeing the animals, the kangaroos, seeing the koala bears, seeing the wild cockatoos and parrots near the Blue Mountains was memorable.
Yeah.
Again, being an animal lover and all things nature. Then my third favorite trip was to Czech, especially Prague and Brno. The people made it special seeing some of the mummified remains in the city of Brno. They had like a mausoleum where you could go in there. I think it was also called the sanatorium. And, I went with a couple women friends and we had lunch and we saw the lines to go in there. So we went and visited the mummified remains of many generations ago. And again, the food, the people really made it very, very special. The fourth favorite trip of mine was Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam. The people, just the ambiance, the canals, and we were there in the summer and it was just gorgeous. So
went there twice, I think.
we went there twice. The second time was in the winter and it wasn't as enjoyable. It was snowy and cold, but we really, again, it's a great place, great people, fond memories. It was fantastic. And lastly, I think one of my favorites will always be France. I know I'm more of a lover of France than you are. I speak the language, so I love Paris, obviously. We were blessed to have a friend of ours, a co-worker of yours, take us around, again, the whole city of Paris, places that we wouldn't know to visit because he was a native. He took us to some fabulous restaurant that, as a tourist, you would never find it. And we just enjoyed the time spent with him, hearing more about the culture over there, the lifestyle, and it always, for me, the people make it special, the natives. We really enjoyed it. So, and Versailles was gorgeous. It was just a fantastic place to visit.
I'm surprised the train trip didn't.
No, I'm not. Well, I like the trains in Europe much more than I enjoy the Amtrak. Yeah, sadly to say, but it's true.
And Venice, I'm surprised Venice.
Oh, Venice. Well, that's on there too. That's in Italy. Yeah, which we're going to next week.
Yep.
So anyway, Pompeii, if you're talking about Italy, Pompeii is a must-see destination if you're in Italy.
Yep. Super. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as Sue mentioned, we're giving Europe honorable mention. We've probably been there, I don't know, four or five times probably. In fact, we're going there next week. And so we love Europe. But here's the top 5 that I have, and my wife hasn't seen them yet, so I'll read off. Number 5 is a U.S. train trip. We took a trip, Amtrak, from middle of Florida up to Washington, D.C. overnight, stayed a couple nights in Washington, D.C., then we spent one night to Chicago, spent a couple nights there, and then we went to Denver, stayed there a short time, and then on to Sacramento, San Francisco, and then down to San Diego. I just loved that trip. I think my wife would probably get 0 on that trip.
Not a fan of the sleeping car.
Yeah, she, I planned the whole thing. We lucked out in many ways. There was a lot of demonstrations in Washington, D.C. because it was around the election time. When we went to Chicago, it was the World Series, and I mean the atmosphere was just amazing. We couldn't get tickets, but the hotels and stuff, it was just a fantastic trip. I loved it. Probably would never do it again. Our fourth best, I would say, would be Alaska. That's kind of a hybrid. We took a cruise from Vancouver to where did we go? Anchorage. And then from Anchorage, we took the train to Fairbanks, which was also part of the cruise. And then in Fairbanks, we went on our own. We rented a car. We went up to the Downton Highway. We wanted to see the Northern Lights. We never did, but that was fun. Yeah, we went to the North Pole up there. There's a city called the North Pole. We did. We found a reindeer farm. We went to the reindeer farm. We just had a wonderful time. And that was the second best of the top 5. The third one, we literally took a trip around the world. This was something Singapore Airlines offered. You could fly for one price around the world. The only stipulation is you could only go in one direction. And that trip, my goodness, we hit a lot of places in Europe. We hit Singapore, Taiwan, and then from there Hong Kong, and then I think from there we went all the way down to Australia, which was still going in a eastern direction, and spent a weekend there. And then from there we went up to Singapore or Hong Kong. I mean, it was unbelievable amount of airtime. Funny part is when we got to Pittsburgh, all we had to do was, at that time we lived in Buffalo, New York, all we had to do was shoot up probably about an hour flight, I would say. And they held up the plane because the toilet didn't work. So you can imagine this took us about a month to do the whole trip, and the last hour was the problem. The second best trip we had was we took a cruise to Greece, and then from Greece to Turkey, and then we flew to Cappadocia on our own and spent 2 or 3 nights in Cappadocia. Yeah, just phenomenal. And then we went back to Istanbul, and on our own we took. I remember one of our highlights. We took I always wanted a Turkish bath. And we found a place, you could tell by the sign, they gave Turkish baths. And we went in there, and they basically told us to take our clothes off, gave us a little towel, and then they stuck us in this sauna. And we sat in the sauna, and we didn't know what was going on. And then this huge guy, I mean, he had to weigh 350 pounds, if not more. Yeah, he was an opera singer, and he's been there before, and he just came so he stayed in the sauna for no more than probably 5 minutes. He went running out. Well, we followed him, and then Sue figured. I followed this guy into the men's area, and they threw us on a large stainless steel platter or slab. And with no clothes on, and this guy with just a pair of short, underwear on, he's lathering us up, and we're sliding all over the place and bouncing off each other. Unbelievable. It was just it was a fun experience. We got lost once on our own, and we saw 4 or 5 cops all yakking to each other. So we walked up to them, and I think or asked directions. We had to find where the train was, and the one guy then looked at us, and then he took off walking real fast. So we thought he was going to show us where the train station was. So we're kind of jogging to keep up with this guy, and he kept going faster and faster, and we're going faster. And finally he turns around and starts screaming at us. And the gist of it is he was yelling at us, "Why are you following me?" So that was very interesting, not to mention the Persian rug salesman who we couldn't shake at all. But that's too long of a story. But they were all so nice and so much fun. Last but not least, what I consider I think it was Easter Mass in Notre Dame, which was quite an experience by itself. And then we went there a couple years ago after the fire, really, just to see it. It was very sad. But last, we have Africa. And this was a tour group through Lion World. And it was kind of an interesting way they did it, is that you could, almost from a menu, you could pick and place what things you wanted to do. So we really ended up being used by 3 or 4 tour groups, one in South Africa, Cape Town, and then we went to the safari. We took the blue train, overnight blue train, which is probably one of the best trains in the world. And then we went to Victoria Falls, and it was, yeah, went to Johannesburg. I mean, it was just yeah, yeah. Wouldn't want to do it again, but once in a lifetime, you can, yeah, yeah. They wouldn't take us back to our room because there was hippos in the way, which, by the way, is the #1 killer of people in Africa. Hippos. They're huge and they're mean. They're not nice. So, Susie, what else do you have to say? Yeah, yeah. We're taking the transatlantic back. Never have done that before. We always kind of like new stuff. We're spending a whole day in Casablanca, Morocco, which has kind of been on my bucket list to see Casablanca after watching that Humphrey Bogart movie. So anyhow, cheers. I hope you enjoy the video. Cheers. Again, subscribe, like it, and share, and be safe and be healthy. Bye-bye.